Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how to say that something's either hot or cold in Spanish. Now in English, this is super easy to do because we only use one verb for everything basically, and that is to be. Mary's cold, the rice is cold, it's cold out. We just keep using the verb to be. But in Spanish, we would typically translate those sentences using three different verbs, and they're not interchangeable. So the differences between the two languages, especially in this area, is a pretty common source of confusion. So, well, I decided to do a video to just clear it all up. When we're talking about anything being hot or cold, whether it's me, the weather, the soup, whatever, those things are going to fall into one of three categories. And the category it falls into is going to tell us how to translate the sentence. Our first category is people and animals, second category, items and things, and the third category, weather and environmental temperature. Let's start with our first category, people and animals. We're going to be using this construction, tener calor or tener frío. Tener calor means to have heat. Tener frío means to have cold, but the cold we're talking about is the noun cold, not the adjective. They are identical words in Spanish, however. So in English I say I am hot, but in Spanish I would say I have heat. It's important to point out here that what I'm really expressing is how I'm feeling. I feel hot or I feel cold. Tengo calor. I'm hot, but I feel hot. If you took my temperature, I'm probably going to be 98.6 whether I'm saying tengo calor or tengo frío. Unless I'm sick, of course, but that's a whole nother video. But then again, if I'm sick, I could have both. 1 second I'd be like, tengo calor. And the next minute I could be like, tengo frío. You can use this with animals, but you're really talking about their perceived temperature. For example, el gato tiene frío, está temblando. The cat's cold, it's trembling. Or you see your dog outside panting and you're like, el perro tiene calor. The dog's hot. Sometimes you want to be able to say, I'm very hot or I'm very cold. And this gives students some trouble because they're like, well, is it muy or is it mucho? Well, muy is for adjectives and adverbs, and we're not using that here, right? We're talking about I have heat. That's a noun. So the only option here is mucho. Tengo mucho calor. ¿Tienes calor? Are you hot? Sí, tengo mucho calor. Prende el aire acondicionado. Turn on the air conditioning. But usually we'll just say prende el aire, because what other air would I be turning on? So this is how you feel overall, hot or cold. But you're not going to use this expression if you're talking about, say, a specific body part. For example, you're not going to touch somebody's hand and be like, ooh, tu mano tiene frío, your hand's cold. You're not going to use that expression. You could actually express that a couple ways. One common way with body parts is tienes la mano fría, like you have the cold hand. We're not going to be focusing on that construction today because, well, it's very limited to like body parts. And I want to be able to give you a construction you can use for all kinds of things. And that's going to bring us to our second category, items and things. And our construction is going to be estar caliente or estar frío. Caliente and frío are adjectives, which means they need to agree in number and gender with whatever they're modifying. So if you touched your hand, it was cold, I could say, tu mano está fría. Now you may be going, okay, I see mano, yet it's fría. So mano is masculine? No, mano is one of those irregular nouns, and it's actually la mano. So it's feminine. So adjectives have to agree with the feminine noun. That's why it is fría. Let's use this construction with some other nouns so you can see how the adjective has to agree in number and gender. La olla está caliente. The pot is hot. Now you see caliente, doesn't have a masculine or a feminine version. It's just going to be either caliente or calientes. Here, la olla is singular, so we have caliente. Los tacos están calientes. The tacos are hot, and we're only talking about temperature hot here, not spicy. Los míos están fríos. Mine are cold, meaning the tacos. That's why it's fríos. Let's look at a singular feminine noun. La bebida está fría. The drink is cold. Let's make that plural. Las bebidas están frías. The drinks are cold. See, our verb changed to into the plural. So what if I want to say the drinks are very cold? Am I going to be using muy, mucha, muchas? What am I going to be doing here? I gave you the answer before. When we're talking about adjectives and adverbs, we're going to use muy. And that's what we have here, right? So the drinks are very cold would be las bebidas están muy frías. That brings us to our third category, which is weather and environmental temperature or ambient temperature. And our construction here is going to be hacer calor or hacer frío. Literally, it makes heat or it makes cold. Very similar to how our first construction worked with tener. One nice thing about category 3 is that there is not as much conjugation involved. Normally we're speaking in the present tense, and if we are, then we're just going to be using it in the third person singular, hace. Hace calor, it's hot. Hace frío, it's cold. In that case, I could be talking about the weather outside or the temperature of the room I'm in. Hoy hace mucho calor, por eso mi cerveza está caliente y tengo calor. It's hot today. That's why my beer is hot and I'm hot. You may also have noticed that I said hace mucho calor and not muy calor. And that's because it's a noun. You shouldn't be having any trouble with that, right? You've already got it. My wife's originally from Colombia, and she'll occasionally use this construction, hacer calor, in the present progressive to stress that at that moment it's really hot or cold, right? For example, we may be walking outside through the park and she's like, whew, está haciendo mucho calor. But she could just as easily have said, whew, hace mucho calor. Really no difference there. This doesn't just have to be for weather. You can use this when it's hot inside too. For example, you're sitting in your living room and you're like, hace calor, prende el aire. It's hot, turn on the air. Or the whole thing would be, prende el aire acondicionado. Turn on the air conditioner. But when you say prende el aire, really, what else are you talking about? I know some folks watching may key in on the verb I use there to say to turn on. Prender, I'm using it in the imperative, turn this on. Another verb you can use to turn things on is encender. It's really your choice. I'm actually working on a video now about imperatives, also known as command form. So if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe. Back to, you can use this for, inside houses as well. For example, you could say, hace mucho calor en el garaje. It's really hot in the garage. I do want to point out here that there are other ways to express that it's hot or cold inside, but I really don't want to muddy the waters here. I found that when you learn a construction, if you start going, well, you could say it this way, and you could say it this way, and you could say it this way, what I used to come away with was, well, nothing. Just a lot of people sounded like porpoises. It was just information overload. So what I really want you to take away from this lesson is that you remember the 3 categories and the 3 constructions. That's it, nice and short, right? So let's cover those again real quick. People and animals, meaning how they're perceiving temperature. Are they feeling hot? Are they feeling cold? Tener calor, tener frío. However, if you're talking about perceived temperature, like temperature to the touch, like what their hand feels like or what their own hand feels like to them, then we're going to throw that in our second category, which I just call items and things, and our construction will be estar caliente, estar frío. Remember, those are adjectives, so they have to agree in number and gender with whatever they're modifying, right? Whatever they're describing. And our third category is weather or environmental temperature, ambient temperature, however you want to remember it. And that's going to be hacer calor and hacer frío. Just a reminder, there's not a lot of conjugation in that one. If you're speaking in the present tense, most of the time you're just gonna say hace calor, hace frío. Piece of cake. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you found it informative, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.